That's honestly pretty good.
Yep.
You make
It's
it that
better
far.
than average. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like no, this isn't fun to talk about. Never mind. It's gonna go into people dying. So, never mind that.
Let's talk about it. Let's dig in.
Let's dig in. So, like, what happens after you die? All right. Hello and welcome everyone to the GGG Podcast. My name is Paul, and as always, I am joined by my co-host Phil. We got a good show for you this week. Some interesting releases. Dead as Disco coming out, a game that Phil and I have been watching for quite some time. Some interesting stuff in the news. Injustice 3 is coming along. Sony clarifies their online checking system that we talked about last week, so we have some clarity. It's not as bad as we thought, so we'll discuss that as well. May the 4th, of course, pass this week. But for the main topic for the GGG podcast, we are going to dig in to IGN, particularly their review system. But we're going to do a little IGN complaint fest, and it's going to be grand because Phil and I have had it up to here, and maybe we're going to go to here during the episode. And if you're listening to the audio version, I was raising my hand up and down. Okay, Phil.
We've definitely had a 7 at least in terms of our experience with IGN. We'll get to that later, but it has been a pretty good week for games. I played a lot of Dead as Disco yesterday, which we will get into more in a minute.
Yeah.
I've been playing more Crimson Desert. Game just keeps getting better. They keep putting more in that game, and a good amount of Saros. So, been a busy week for me in that regard. What about you, Paul?
Been playing Fortnite, with my partner. So that's been fun. Got into some of the May the 4th stuff that we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, my two main games have been Saros and then Diablo 4, the latest DLC that just came out for it. And I have to say, Diablo 4, the latest DLC, is pretty good. I definitely towards the beginning, as far as like doing the story, you kind of like go into autopilot. You're like, okay, demons are coming. How do we kill the demons? That mentality. But like the story just keeps going. And it's a lot longer, and the area is actually a lot bigger than I expected it to be. So I was happily impressed with that. And I think like one of the things that is really working for me with the DLC is that it seems like the Scovos, which is the new region, is definitely based on like Greece or like Crete. And so there's a little bit of like this God of War aesthetic, like original God of War aesthetic, that I think is like really working for it. And they very tactfully like put specific enemy types that just feel really good because the class that came out, a couple classes came out, but the main one being the paladin. It's so like the first area is like, well, you're fighting zombies and you're fighting them with holy light. And there's something like really cool about that aesthetic and doing that.
Yeah.
So I've been into it, and it's been a great game where I can like play for 30 minutes and then go do something else after, like doing a dungeon or whatnot. But then, been playing a lot of Saros, really getting into it. I really like it. I know that there's a bit of a divide online where people are like, oh, it's not as hard as Returnal was. And I love Returnal because it was so hard. It's like, well, Returnal still exists. Go play it. Have fun. Like, I'm sorry that they made the game slightly more accessible to an average person, and it's still hard is the thing, but it's not hardcore enough for some people. So I want to say I think the gameplay changes are great, and the fact that they don't make you restart at the beginning every single time, where you can like kind of fast forward to a checkpoint. It just makes it so like, okay, I can do a run in 30 minutes instead of doing a run that lasts 4 or 5 hours in order to beat the game. So really like all those changes. Have you been having a good time with Saros?
I have been having a great time with Saros. I really enjoy all the changes that they've made. Like the fact that you get to come back stronger is literally like in the title of the game.
Yeah,
it's great. I think there's something to like, coming back, knowing more of the enemy, like the Dark Soulsy nature of Returnal.
Yeah.
That you're not necessarily like leveling up that much as much as you are leveling up as a person, like as a player. But that said, I feel like doing both is the right thing to do because it doesn't make it as backbreaking when you die. Like that just becomes a normal part of the game, and you're like, okay, well, this run wasn't really it. I'm probably gonna die early on, and then boom, you're right back into the next one, and boom, you're working on the level that you were working on just now. Like it feels less tedious, which I think is a great thing. The main character is cool. The whole mystery surrounding it is cool. The enemy design is great, and like the different weapons and the different abilities that you get really do add up to change up the way that you play run to run, which is I think any good roguelike has that quality, but they really just do a great job of making this feel like such an intense action game, where minor little moments are gonna make or break you. They make you like shield and have to hit things in such a way that it really rewards you for being aggressive. So
dude, the shield,
like
I think the shield is a great gameplay component, and it's not really. I've never really seen a shield used in the way that it's used in this game. And like the color matching and stuff like that, maybe like more Metroidvania games have already done this, and I'm just not aware. But I really like the mechanic, and I love the color code. Everything I feel like in Returnal was just like, well, you better dodge, you better get out of its way. And this is like, no, you have to be more tactful, and you have to look for the signals and read what you need to do. Having a lot of fun. I cannot believe that game is a 7 on IGN, but I'm guessing we're going to get into that when we get to our main topic. So
it's one of the reasons I want to talk about IGN.
All right, well, let's get into the major game releases this week. First up, Dead is Disco. I played this game as a demo. Had a load of fun. It's just a great idea for a game. It is like a surprisingly simple concept, but it just works so well. And you actually picked up the early access of Dead is Disco yesterday, Phil. Have you been enjoying it? Or are there more features in it now than that weren't just in the demo?
Yeah, the original demo kind of just had the endless run mode, which like you could play for the length of a song and try to get like, a high score. It also had the component that allowed you to add songs from your computer, which this also has. But what they've added are a skill tree, advancements, boss fights. So like the levels that you fight, it's sort of like a Mega Man thing where you're fighting a bunch of goons. It's 2 like different tracks. And there's these big level transitions till eventually you fight a boss. And when you fight that boss, you get new abilities from kind of recruiting that boss type of thing. And it's really, really, really fun. Like it definitely reminds me of when I used to play Arkham Knight regularly. And I would just do the combat challenges and play music and just kind of zone out. It's a very similar thing.
Okay.
So I think it's a great game. Even in early access, like I feel like there's a full game already here. I encountered a couple bugs, which I think is any early release. I totally understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to see what this game turns into, how much they add. There is a multiplayer tab on the start screen that is like grayed out. And I don't know if that's something I can unlock now or I have to wait for them to update. But seems pretty cool.
Right on. And how much is it going for in early access?
I got it for $17.99, which I think is the discount from the normal $19.99 that it is.
Okay.
Just double check
I think
that.
Make sure that's a great price. Absolutely.
Yeah. Where is? Sorry, it's normally $24.99 and it's selling for $19.99. I got it from Green Man Gaming for $17.99.
Oh, with those coupon codes.
Discount on there. You know.
Yeah. All right. Well, next up on our game releases is Mixtape. This is a game that I believe was announced at the Summer Games Fest last year. It is a kind of a cel-shaded, very interesting, fun art style, almost similar to what you saw in like the Spider-Verse movies. And it is very much a like Stranger Things type adventure game. Obviously less creepy, less demons, that kind of stuff, but just seems like a very fun narrative story game. So that's been exciting. I think my partner might be interested in that. And then we also have Will Follow the Light, will ellipses follow the light?
We'll follow the light.
Yeah. And so in this game, it's a first-person adventure, creepy game where you're trying to find someone or find your family after you've gone through they've gone through like this traumatic accident and whatnot. Here, I'll read uncover the narrative that will captivate you until the very end. Oh God, I hope so. Will Follow the Light, crafted by the young indie studio Tomorrowhead, is an adventure story game that strives to put the boundaries of the genre. An escapism-themed plot takes inspiration from the game Firewatch. That's a little concerning. While the visuals and atmosphere are influenced by Alan Wake. Will Follow the Light features unusual but intuitive game mechanics against an enthralling backdrop of epic northern scenery. You will find yourself sailing between remote islands and uncharted waters. Well, I'm in Seattle now, and this game. But will he do it? Will? Yes. I don't know. Not my genre. Doing, but if you're into escapism games, it's there you go. All right, shall we just press right into the news then, Phil?
Let's push into that thing.
Okay. All right, let's push right in. So first up is clarifying the Sony stuff that came out last week. So originally, we found out in Sony's terms and agreements that they are instituting a online check once a month to see if you actually owned the games, if you bought any digital-only games. I think it was starting in March or like March 30th or something like that. And it turns out that it will not check every single month, as people were reporting, as we reported, and it will only need to check once. The reason that Sony added this to their terms of service is because people have been manipulating the refund system in the PlayStation Network. So people are refunding their games like on their phone or on their browser and then unplugging their PlayStation from the internet or disconnecting it. And so their PlayStation didn't actually know that they refunded the game and thus getting the game for free. So that makes a whole lot of sense. I'm glad that they came out and gave a statement. I love when a company just comes out and clarifies something and clears something right up. That feels like what this is. Do you think this is an unjust way to regulate, refund exploiters, or do you think this is pretty straightforward, Phil?
I don't think it's unjust. I think it's pretty. It makes sense. In that sense, I don't know. I don't begrudge Sony for like trying to make sure that they don't lose out on sales, like, and kind of close this loophole.
Yeah.
I think the scary thing is the slippery slope argument of it, that if Sony wants to just be like, okay, it does seem sort of crazy for them to do that, and that like, oh, if you don't play every 30 days, we're taking your games away, or like, if you can't play unless you get online. I think Sony's mentality has not been that for the most part, but in the age of like digital lack of ownership and all this stuff, it is kind of a real concern that you could get caught up in a system and accidentally lose the rights to have your stuff.
Yeah,
and I think that's the fear that this is preying upon.
Yeah, I totally get that. So I don't want to have to, verify things anymore.
Yeah.
I think we're progressively moving into this. Well, especially in America, where you don't own anything, you just subscribe and you keep paying paying, like rent and utilities and everything. It's just another subscription. So
own a home? No, just subscribe to an apartment.
Yes. So yeah, I get it. I do think this is a lot better than what was reported last week. So I'm glad this is a step in a more positive direction, and they're not taking too much advantage of this. But yeah, good to know overall. A little slippery.
Happy to know that Sony isn't as evil as we thought they were for a minute.
Yes. All right. Next up, Injustice 3 is on the way. NetherRealm Studios is working on it actively. It is official. They have confirmed it themselves. I'm happy to see this. I have loved the Injustice games. I think that, yes, they are a little bit more on the casual fighter side of things, but that's kind of where I am as like a gamer who dips his toes into fighting games periodically. And I just love the story of the original Injustice, which has really been like accelerated by, like, we've seen The Boy, obviously the comic of The Boys, and Invincible has been around for a very long time. But seeing that story of like, okay, well, what if Superman was evil? It has really taken off. So I'm excited for another Injustice. I really liked what they did with Injustice 2 with like the gear system and like adding RNG to it. Did you play through the story or did you own the Injustice games back in the day, Phil?
Oh yeah, I've played through the story of both of the Injustice games, and I really, really enjoyed them. I think Injustice 1, like, pretty straightforward. Like, what if Superman was evil? Like you said, the circumstances around him becoming evil are all very interesting, and then our heroes cross over from like a universe into this universe to stop evil Superman. Very, very fun, very interesting. Justice 2, which I think was a pretty major step up, at least in my opinion. Like, graphically, it's beautiful.
Yes.
The story's very, very good. The characters they add are all very interesting. I was impressed to see that they were able to do that. I didn't think that Injustice had that much legs. And the team over at NetherRealms, when it comes to their narrative content, I feel like is pretty top of line for fighting games.
Yes, it is 100%. NetherRealm does the best stories in fighting games. And they didn't used to. So I don't want to praise every single Mortal Kombat game. But I would probably say since Mortal Kombat, I'm going to go 9. But even Mortal Kombat 8, they started trending in that direction. Like, really premium story for a fighting game. Not, it's not there with Uncharted and The Last of Us or anything, or a big RPG. But for a fighting game, it actually gave you a story you kind of cared about. And yeah, there were cheesy moments of like, well, I guess now we got to fight. But those are coming when it's a fighting game. So I don't know what...
They should be there. They should be there.
Yes. Fights have to happen.
Yeah, no, I feel like those games are really great at even the Mortal Kombat games are really good at this, and I care less about those characters. I think just endemically, like, the DC characters are a little bit easier to be like, oh yeah. But the fact that the story isn't like incredible, but it's enough for you to be like, okay, well, I'll watch this between the gameplay.
Yeah.
And then you have the fight, and you're like, okay, cool, next little bit. And it invites you in a way that's really enjoyable, and the writing is just like pretty good for the characters. So happy to see it.
I think they have done a great job at changing with the times. I remember MK, I think it was MK10, with the brutalities going next level and whatnot, and you get the X-ray vision in there. So I'm excited to see what they do for Injustice 3. Very pumped about it. Let's press right along. Fortnite celebrates May the 4th. In general, I have to say, as a Star Wars fan, not a lot of May the 4th celebration going on. It felt kind of weak this year, or, I guess kind of mid. And so, like, I was going through, like, all the Star Wars sales for video games, and it was just like, I own all of these, or that's just mediocre, or whatnot. So I was glad to see some support for May the 4th in Fortnite. As far as like when we're recording this, there are still like Fortnite skins, and particularly they've added several modes. One of which is just straight up Star Wars Battlefront. So it's just a crummier version of Star Wars Battlefront, but it is Star Wars Battlefront, which, was okay. I tried it out. They have like the 4 different classes, so it feels like classic Battlefront. And they also have like an escape from Darth Vader mode as a little creepy, fun thing. I did purchase a Chewbacca skin, I have to acknowledge. And I did get the backpack.
Well, you should.
I got the backpack with C-3PO from Empire when he's like all in pieces, and so I have Chewbacca carrying C-3PO. Like that's ideal. so and he shouts.
That's excellent.
Yeah. But yeah, any of this Star Wars content going to pull you back into Fortnite this week at all, Phil, or no? It's just more.
No, I mean, the lightsabers are always great in Fortnite. They do a really good job. They add a lot for Star Wars, and I'm happy that they care. But I do feel like we're in a slow year for Star Wars right now. Like, it is also crazy to me that Grogu and the Mandalorian is coming out May 20th. You could have just slid it up to this week.
I really, like, I don't know. Why did they not take advantage of that? This doesn't make any sense. Are you really that behind in production you can't move it up 20 days? Like, There must be like an algorithm somewhere in AI that's like, no, this is the ideal day to release, and that is why they're doing it. Like, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. I just don't see them competing with a lot of big movies right now. I think Project Hail Mary is still out, but I feel like most people who are going to go see it have seen it by now. So it just feels like right now is kind of this open window. Maybe they're worried about Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter and He-Man, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. When you're worried about those movies, so yeah. Actually, you know what? Since we are talking about Star Wars, we're gonna skip over this next topic and we'll come back to it just to stay on the Star Wars train of thought. Galactic Racer, we talked about last week, had a release date trailer that came out, so we now know it's coming out on October 6th, and now we actually have some additions that are available, and we found out the game is going to be releasing at $60 instead of $70, which is pretty nice. And if you're like Phil, and you're like, I like buying things through Green Man Gaming or Fanatical, there is a Fanatical, which is a code for Steam. It's going for $50.99 instead of $59.99, so you can get it even cheaper on PC if that's your preferred mode of racing. As far as the deluxe edition, that's going to be $80, and you get 3 different speeders with that, and you get the skin for them that very much looks like the Naboo starfighter from episode 1. So that's pretty cool. And then if you really just love spending money, don't worry, there's one for you too. There's an $160 version that comes with a steel case. It also comes with a model speeder that you fly around in the game, and lots of other bits and bobs and whatnot.
What's in the case?
Probably a code for the game, because they won't give you the disc anymore. Remember when the cases had things in them? Like, even the basic cases, you had like a little manual for the game and everything. I miss those days. I
like the Kestar banner and the physical art book. That's the pilot patches, all pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
I think I feel like there are Star Wars racing game fans, the pod racing fans, who are craving this right now. So I think that deluxe mega edition will sell. The collector's edition.
Sure.
Because this game looks good. Like, everything that I've seen from it, as someone who doesn't really care about racing games that much and doesn't care that much about like Star Wars licensed racing games specifically.
Yeah.
Looks good. I want to play it. Like, it looks fast and fun and kind of Burnout revengey, which is the biggest compliment I can give.
Burnout, MotorStorm. Like, I like racing games that are not realistic. Because I'm so Forza lovers out there, Gran Turismo lovers out there. I feel you. I'm sure those games are great. They've been reviewed great. I'm not really into cars that much. And so I don't know as much as like somebody who's like hobby or passion that is. My brother loves cars. And so he enjoys more of like the realistic racing games. For me, it's like, I want to go fast and I want to run somebody off the road and I want there to be an explosion. Yeah. And so the genre of racing you've figured out for me. And then you slapped a Star Wars theme on it. I'm good to go. I'm ready. I'm Crunchwrap Supreme. So I want this game bad. I don't know if I'm going to shell out the $160 for the special edition or the collector's edition, but I might do the deluxe edition at $80. So that might be my vibe. But yeah. All right. Let's press right along. Xbox games selling well on PlayStation. Are you surprised that they're selling well on PlayStation, Phil?
Well, I think they got to sell somewhere. I do think that PlayStation has become what Xbox was. I think you talk to a lot of PlayStation owners. There are people who used to have Xboxes and are like, God, it got bad. And The Last of Us was on PlayStation, so I switched over.
Yeah.
But I think there is a hunger for people who had just one console to see, hey, let's see what Starfield's about. It's the new Bethesda game, and it's been locked behind a console war for a while.
Yeah.
Similarly, I think the Forza games really make a lot of sense on PlayStation because we're not getting Gran Turismos that often.
Yeah, that's true.
And for the people who are not like us and don't like to have fun while racing, you've got that. That's your option. You know, that's what you do.
Yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense, and I will say, because we've been talking about the new head of Xbox, Asha, which I think she's doing a great job. Everybody, every Xbox fan, I feel like online is raving about. Oh my God, she fixed Xbox in a month, and I want to commend her. I do agree, she's making good decisions, but I will say it just speaks to the terrible leadership of Phil Spencer. That's all we could have just made these decisions and hit a baseline that makes our at least hardcore fans happy. And so I will say she talked about maybe not, giving all of Xbox's exclusives over to Sony. I think that because of these sales, and let's get into some numbers right here. So the report that came out, Forza Horizon 5, came out on PlayStation 5 last year and made $323 million in gross revenue. So that's 5.8 million copies. Sea of Thieves also did really well. Did $100 million in revenue. And then Oblivion Remastered did $58 million in revenue. So it's those are some big hitters. And I think with these sales, you as the new leader of Xbox, you can't just be okay, well, we still need to keep everything exclusive. I think you just got to be selective with exclusivity. Or just do what Sony does. Just be all right, you can play Halo a year later. So if you want to play it right now, you got to play it on Xbox. But if you want to play it on PlayStation, great. You'll be playing it next November. So, you can do that.
I do think there's something to, PlayStation's probably not going to be doing that anymore with their PC games.
Right.
They've said that they're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there is something to, depending on the game, it's got to be about, whatever the next Elder Scrolls is, if people still care about it by then, which hopefully... most likely they will not. That will have to probably be a day one because I don't think they want to lose on that much money. And I feel like the longer after a game comes out, the more willing people are to not buy it. There's that when it first comes out, brand new hype that would just be such a wave of sales. And I think if they're not on both consoles, people will be oh, well, I heard that Starfield wasn't that great, so I'm not going to buy it. But if it had released on PlayStation and Xbox at the same time, it would be probably gangbusters. But that's
I don't know. I'm very curious to see how this trend continues and what the decision is going forward. Obviously, I think the biggest problem is Xbox doesn't have a lot of games in the pipe. So what are the game we're getting another Gears of War prequel because we can't move on from Marcus for whatever reason. We are so
we gotta know more about him.
Yeah, just we haven't had enough games of him, being Marcus. So he's a great character. Don't get me wrong, but you got to move the universe forward, and they're just not doing that at all. So, all right. Last up on the news. I've been playing a lot of Diablo 4, so I saw this circulating, and the cow level is a real thing that has been in Diablo 2 and it has been in Diablo 3, and players have struggled to find it in Diablo 4. But with this latest update, the cow level is officially in Diablo 4, and you have to do a bunch of ridiculous things to get to it, but if you really want to do it, you can. And the biggest incentive to do it is that there is a mythic helm that you can get from beating the cow level. And it gives you a different ability depending on what day of the week it is. So if it's on Monday, you do +1 damage to two-legged enemies. +1 damage to two-legged enemies. So if it has 2 legs, it's ×2 damage. On Tuesday, it's 10% decreased chance to be unlucky against yay distant enemies. A yay distant enemy is between 3 and 18 hooves of equal distance when placed parallel to the equator on this afternoon. Whatever the hell that means. So
I like it because it's silly.
Yeah,
it's really dumb.
It's really silly. It's really dumb. And it's exactly the kind of thing that a hardcore Diablo fan who is obsessed with RNG and grinding wants. Like, for me, I don't know that to the point that I'm like having to do calculus to determine how much damage my character is putting out. I think that's where I kind of fall off of Diablo. But if you are super hardcore, like, you know, this has got to be on your bucket list to do the cow level in Diablo 4. So interesting that it exists and they finally put it in the game. All right, let's get into our main topic, which is IGN. Phil, you've had a lot of thoughts on this. We criticize IGN quite a bit. What are we talking about with IGN today? Why are we going in on IGN?
Well, what I want to talk about is IGN relevant anymore? And I know I'm saying that as a very small independent podcast. Thanks to our 3 viewers every month. I know that this must sound a little bit crazy coming from the conversation about relevancy, but I do think that IGN, at least for me and people that I talk to, and seemingly the internet, is no longer the force in video games that it used to be. It seems like their review model is outdated and doesn't quite work a lot of the times.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. It seems as they're constantly just overloaded with ads, and they've kind of become a bit of a meme, which I think is one of the giant death knells in their coffin. Like, I used to defend IGN and say, like, not everything gets a 7, but so many things get a 7.
Yeah.
So many things don't really fully use the number scale.
Yeah.
But let's talk about a couple of examples recently that I feel like were pretty glaring, just dislike of games that kind of were seemingly for no reason, like other than they were smaller studios, or independent new studios. Crimson Desert, I truly enjoy, and I know this might sound like, oh, I really like the game, IGN did it, whatever. It is strange to give that game a 6, I think, because it has come a long way, which, you know, granted wasn't done at the time, although it was a review in progress.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things written about in that review were just, like, not accurate or not what the game is like, which is, again, maybe there was a giant day 1 patch that completely changed the game.
Yeah.
But Mouse Detective, largely lauded with like some high 8s and occasional 9s, for some reason from IGN got a 7, and that seems to be the case of the game wasn't what they wanted it to be, but was instead something different. Right. And that was they didn't review the game for what it was; they reviewed the game for what they wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Lastly, and most famously, Saros came out. This is Housemarque, very, very good studio, and the game, I think, is an improvement upon Returnal in a lot of ways. And they gave it a 7. Rahul Kohli famously wore it to stream with Alana Pierce. He wore a shirt with a 7 on it.
Yeah.
They just said good. And I think all of this is kind of leading into IGN being just a sort of shell of what it was, and I just don't know if gaming sites like that are really still relevant in terms of what's going to push you to buy a game, what's going to push the audience to like get interested in a game, versus they're just like a sort of Ouroboros of fart smelling from developers and companies. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. I get you. I mean, I would say firstly, like, I don't think that those kinds of websites are like, there's no place for them anymore. So I disagree with that. I just think that they don't really have a lot of competition. And I think like where we are as a society right now is people are going to apps before they are going to websites. And so like they just get funneled into, well, do you have an Instagram profile so it lands in their feed, or are you on TikTok so it lands in their feed, and stuff like that. So I just think that the model of, like, you talked about, the model of how they review things is really broken, and I would agree with that. And particularly latching on to the Crimson Desert review, they gave it a 6. I don't think that's a fair score at all. And I was empathetic for them at first because Crimson Desert is a humongous freaking game. And it's not like a lot of games where it's like, if I want to play Ghost of Yotei and just mainline the story, I can for the most part, I can do that. And I can get through it as a reviewer and get it done quickly. You can't really do that in Crimson Desert. But you brought up the fact that it was a review in progress. And so it's like, if you wanted to start at a 6 because you were trying to get through it quickly, because you were trying to meet your deadline of, playing through the game so you could review it, that's fine. But if it's a review in progress, then you have a right to change your mind. And I just think, like, if you go into it with a bitter attitude, or if it's not the game you were expecting, I think a lot of reviewers do that all the time, not just in games, but in movies, of like, well, it's not how I would have did it. Well, it's like, okay, well, you seem to have a preconceived notion of what your experience was going to be. And when it didn't live up to your imagination, so yeah, I think, the biggest criticism I will throw at them is that, when it comes to reviews and how they are structured, department wise, I feel like they are still structured in a way that reflects a late 2000s to 2010s era of video games, which is, it's Xbox versus PlayStation versus Nintendo. And like, I tried listening to, I think, like the IGN's PlayStation podcast recently. I like almost ripped my hair out. Like, it's why are we still splitting people up on what device they play on? I don't think that we're just talking about Xbox having its games on PlayStation. And so like, like a couple episodes ago, I talked about Invincible, and, I was very candid of like, I'm not like a big fighting game guy. So my opinion on this game, may not be entirely valid because I'm not a big fighting game guy. But if I was working at IGN, like, I probably shouldn't be the person to review Invincible. You know, and so you should have a guy who's like, or a person who's like, all right, Jay does all the fighting games, or like Laura reviews all the first person shooters, and this person, they review all the cozy games. And so it's like, you find someone who's experienced with the genre. Like, I hate horror movies. So if there's a great horror movie out there, I should not be the one reviewing it, because chances are I'm not going to like it. So that's my biggest thing with them.
Yeah, I'll throw a couple things. I feel like in there, I do think that they are struggling, not because there isn't like a place for IGN, but I think that they are struggling because they seemingly seem gun shy about having their creators front and center. I think they've been burned by like Greg Miller, a lot of Pierce, a lot of people who started at IGN and then kind of moved on to their own bigger and better, in some cases, thing. And it feels like a lot of their folks, their talent is kind of hidden behind a glass. They don't really put them front and center, which I think would allow us to then get like, oh, okay, Max Scoville really hates this type of game. So if he gives this a 4, then I know, as someone who likes it, it's probably better than that for me.
Yeah.
but because there is an alternative to, like, you go to Skill Up, you listen to us talk about games. You have ACG. You have so many people out there that you are familiar with. You've seen what kind of games they play, and them ranking a game usually comes in differently than the trend. Now, I do think that in Crimson Desert's case, they did a 6 because that would draw more attention, and that is like another element of it.
Sure.
That oh, we've got a hot take for you that this game is a 6 because it's been so hyped. So yeah, I think that there is some issues just with how they do the reviews and how they market their reviewers and their talent at their studio, and I think that's largely because IGN is a giant or owned by a pretty big corporation,
Sure.
and that is like they want to grow the brand rather than people within the brand,
Sure. So do you think like it would be a better system to have like a collection of reviewers that are not necessarily working under a big corporation, but still like for the GGG podcast or for Golden Glaze Gaming in general? It's like, all right, I love action adventure games, so those are going to be the games that I review. And like, what would be like a genre that you really love that you'd
sports games? I love Madden NFL. I love first person shooters.
Yeah.
No, it's but I think like it's definitely along those lines. Like we're both gonna play the breaks off of Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Yeah.
We are guys who have been noted to love pirate games.
Yes.
So if you love pirate games and you want to get the opinion of someone who also loves pirate games as to whether or not you're going to spend your money, you should come to us and listen to that review,
Yeah, I definitely feel like you have to, if you as a reviewer are not the audience or like the market for this thing, then I don't really know how valid the review is,
Yeah.
So like, no matter what it is. So like, if you're not thinking to yourself, oh, I would enjoy that, or I think I would enjoy that, or it's intriguing me on a personal level, then yeah, you should not be reviewing that. So it's unfortunate that,
and it's easy to go find that review from someone who is into that.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem that IGN has.
Yeah, because you can find somebody on YouTube or you can find somebody on Twitch. Although Twitch reviewing is a little, hot takey, off the cuff, in the moment kind of a thing. So
yes.
Like I do like reviews that have a little bit more thought put into them. But again, YouTube is a hotbed for that. So yeah. And then I think the ads drive me crazy on IGN. And there's the normal ads that they plaster everywhere, and then there's the article ads, which are just like, hey, buy this, hey, buy that, hey, there's a deal, you can get 10% off of this today, and it is incessant. Like you just like going through their articles. Part of doing this podcast is we have to find stories from various gaming sites. And usually my number one is GameSpot, because finding articles on IGN is just it's downward
tough.
spot. Yeah. It's just like, hey, do you want to buy things? And, at the end of the day, video games are merchandise. We are promoting that. But just the constant selling and sponsoring is so over the top nowadays.
Well, it's difficult when a company does those types of stories to know what is real, what is a real opinion on a project or product, versus what is an advertisement, and that is that's where I think companies lose credibility immediately. Like if I can't tell, even if you put like, this is a review that was paid for by this, or this is like this was paid for by this, it is hard if you see that title and click into it. It just turns your brain, I think, a little bit against them, and to trust them a little bit less, and to wonder, is everything paid for by these people? And I'm not saying that like IGN gets paid for reviews, other than like
they're wined and dined. So
they're wined and dined and succeed. And listen, that's not an uncommon thing. You'll go to press junkets for a movie, and if the movie's crap, that junket's gonna be, the food's gonna be great.
Yep.
There's the interviews are gonna be a lot of fun.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Anaconda seemed like a lot of fun, but I don't know if it was worth watching. So,
Well, my Anaconda don't,
yeah.
that's
So for
yeah.
the whole, I was going to bring up the whole number reviews. Like you talked about, everything gets a 7, which I think when they give out a 7, I feel like that is like we didn't want to make up our minds. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those, and we don't want to be divisive because we weren't paid to like or hate this thing. So
Yeah. Well, it's not the new Call of Duty, so I can't rate it a 10. Or sorry, I can't rate it a 9. They
Right.
never give Call of Duty's 10s, which is good, but they pretty typically get 9s.
Do you think you would be a fan of like bringing back or like just doing what Metacritic does essentially, which is like 1 out of 100, or like you do, it's an 8.6 or it's an 8.7, even though that's just 8.86 and 87.
Yeah, no, I think that like 100-point scale is a little bit better, and I think both those things are the same thing. Like the 100-point, because then you could kind of like tilt things on a basis of, okay, well, I like this a little bit more, and it feels like this, and I want to give it some extra credit, or like, yeah, this is an 8, but it is like kind of just barely there. It did some things that upset me, and that's not going to, I think, make people read the review less than just looking at the score. I think that kind of invites more like, that invites people to be like, oh, why is it an 8.3, and why is this game that came before it a 9.2? Like, what is the difference there?
Right.
But
Right, but if you actually have a system that spells that out for you, like back in the day, I would get all of my news from a website called Game Trailers, which technically still exists, although I think it's just a YouTube channel now. Something that I really liked about Game Trailers is they would have 4 different criteria for the game review. And so like you itemize it. Things would be based on a curve depending on the genre of a game. So if it's a racing game, they're not going to be like, well, the story was absolute garbage. It's a racing game. There's probably not going to be a lot of story in there. But it was, I think the 4 categories were graphics, sound design, story or narrative or whatever, and then gameplay. And I think that those 4 things makes for a pretty good video game review. And, explaining it that way instead of just plastering a number. Like IGN always complains about, oh, well, they click on our articles and they scroll to the bottom to see what the number is. And it's like, yeah, because they want the result. But if back in those days when Game Trailers did that, it'd be like, okay, the graphics were a 9.1. But the sound design sucked and it was a 4. So it dragged the game down. It dragged the score down a little bit. And so you got more of an explanation of the thinking that went into this number. Which I think people are missing, because when you read an IGN review, sometimes you'll read it and you'll be like, oh, this guy hated this game. And then it has an 8. And you're like, I thought he hated the game based on what I just read.
Yeah.
So.
I've seen that plenty of times where I'm like, you really tore into this thing. How did you like it? You know?
So, any other pointers for IGN or recommendations?
Just pack it in. Just give up. No, I'm just kidding. I think they need to some new blood, and they need to put their creators more front and center, and like really allow their personalities to speak through, so that people have a focal point, and IGN isn't just like the Walmart of video game review stores.
Do you think, like, as far as journalists go, because I think with this new generation of journalists coming in, they're very much like, oh, I stream all the time, or I'm posting on my social media and stuff like, is that where you think they need to go? And maybe there's a divide between the old journalists that are like, well, I come to work and I'll do a video for work, but I'm not, I'm not trying to make this my life in social media and whatnot.
Yeah, I do feel like a lot of their workers, and this may just be the nature of playing a lot of video games for reviews, things like that. They tend to like just kind of hate games in a weird way, and just end up liking like, I don't know. I feel like they've also very like leaned into the story heavy, like Life is Strange. Those games I feel like are usually what's new and interesting to people.
Yeah.
And if the game doesn't have a novelty and it's very like core, then I think a lot of IGN reviewers seemingly just turn their brain off to it. But.
Sure. Yeah. I also think like it's probably they're probably more writers than they are gamers, which I know is like always surprising. But it's like, I know many people who work for video game companies who are not really gamers. They don't really play much. Like, I was talking to a friend recently. Oh, what you been playing? He's like, oh, Overwatch. I was like, oh, okay. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Still playing Overwatch. Okay. And even that, it's like, I booted up like last week. And a lot of times that's because, well, if your day job is designing games, you might be sick of games and not be able to enjoy them when you're living your private life. So.
Totally.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. IGN, shutter your doors or rebrand or just, remix it up. So
how about this? This is a simple one. Just change it to GIN, gin. Everybody loves gin.
Yeah. Get Snoop on there. You'll do a whole special. It's going to be great. Or sell the company to us for $1. We would love that. That would be amazing, and we would fix it.
That'd be great.
Maybe.
Run it into the ground immediately. That's what we do.
All right. Well, that's probably gonna do it for us this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this week's episode of the GGG Podcast, episode 120. A fine number. Happy to be there. Join us next week. We're gonna keep on chugging along. And I'm gonna play probably some more Diablo and Sorrows over this next week.
Yeah,
because I think we're gonna get we're entering the early summer lull where not a lot is coming out. So maybe, and I gotta go back and beat Crimson Desert, for Christ's sakes. What am I doing?
Yeah, there's so much to that game. I was in a mech the other day. I was in a mech fighting robots. That game's wild.
Yeah. I have no mech. I have no dragons. This needs to change.
Get on our level.
All right. Peace out, everybody. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. And if you're listening to the audio-only version on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can follow us over there as well. Peace.